They don't just turn up at
And they had no
coronation ceremonies.
Screw you guys.
Jumping 20 feet in the air.
This is our first one
First
recorded
one.
for the new
First
channel.
one.
Hi guys, and welcome to the lore dimension. Today we are making our first stop in a new dimension.
Very exciting one.
We are giving our honest, unfiltered review of the War of the Rohirrim.
Stay tuned to see how well that was received.
Mixed.
Spoilers.
The world has changed.
Bit of an interesting one, this one.
Spoilers?
More than likely.
I'll be honest. Going into this, I was apprehensive but hopeful.
I had less hope. I'd heard things, I'd seen reviews, and I wasn't holding my breath. With that being said, I was a lot less disappointed than I expected to be. It was nowhere near as bad as I thought it could be.
To cover like the high level stuff, the animation I think was good. Weird.
I loved and hate the animation.
It doesn't feel like
It
Tolkien.
doesn't feel like Lord of the Rings.
No.
It didn't feel like Lord of the Rings. And maybe that could have been assisted in the choice of clothing because I didn't like the way they were dressed for the most part.
Fair.
Helm kind of looked legit for his time, and she, when she was in a princess stuff, like she for the most part, except for that weird Attack on Titan looking attire that a load of them
She
were wearing.
looked like she could put on some ODM gear and, you know, take to the rooftops.
So I didn't like that. And then, I just, overall, with the animation, the fact that they opened with her and an eagle, and it still didn't feel like Middle-earth.
Her name was Hera, only daughter of Helm, king of Rohan.
And that's
That
the
kind
thing.
of set the precedent for the rest of the film for me.
The animation felt more like Studio Ghibli.
Her name was Hera, only daughter.
Given that with the animation, it made it significantly harder to kind of fall into the world.
Very much so.
The music,
Music was nice.
no complaints.
Am I right in thinking that was Billy Boyd singing at the beginning as well?
I think so.
It sounded like it.
I'm pretty sure, which just like, we love a callback like that.
Where is the horse? Where is the rider?
A subtle callback like that.
Home is behind the world.
Take note because
Subtle is the key word.
subtle is the key.
And
'Cause
especially since it leaves you that question of is it not? Like
Exactly.
we could have looked into it and Googled it for this, but didn't want to. Because I don't want this film anywhere near my Google search history.
And there is a difference between a nod or a callback and an absolute ripoff. So do we want to get into what we didn't like?
Probably going to be quicker if we do what we do like first.
I liked Helm.
That's it.
You go.
That's it. We're done.
No, Helm was good. The like cinematics of the siege for the most part were decent. The plot made sense.
The cinematics, for the most part, were good. Just not for Middle-earth.
Not for
In my opinion, I'm sure there's people out there who disagree and think that it was a great tribute to Tolkien's work. That's fine. I just personally, I couldn't connect it to Lord of the Rings being animated
It
like
was
that.
a challenge. And I've seen animated Lord of the Rings things. You know, the original
See, I've not watched
Hobbit.
any of the other ones.
They're very different, but they're very different.
In the lands of Middle-earth, in an area known as the Shire,
There's a difference between a cartoon and an animation.
Yeah.
Kind of.
There
You know
is.
what I mean? Mm-hmm. This was a bit too Final Fantasy. That's what it screamed. The last time I saw a film like this, I was watching Final Fantasy VII Advent Children when I was about 13 years old.
Yeah, so a couple complaints there. Okay, just because it's how they open it. They open the movie by saying that Hera is this headstrong,
Free spirit,
Spirit,
wild,
like,
untamable force to be
strong-willed.
reckoned with.
Yeah, and then she spends the entire movie doing everything her father asks her to do.
Yeah. And almost marrying a bloke just because he threatened her family and told her to. Basically just being a pretty
Pushover.
bit of a pushover, but for the time, pretty normal woman.
Normal. And that's the thing. I mean, Eowyn, for the most part, in Lord of the Rings, did pretty much everything Theoden asked her to do. She was his
She
ward.
just drew the line at, if they're going to fight and die, so will I.
That's the one thing she defied him for. It felt like they were just trying to take this character who wasn't even named in the lore. I'm going to say that now. She was a character in the lore, but she wasn't named.
The two sons were.
I've said it with other lore-related things, where when an author writes something, if they leave room for you to take creative liberties with your adaptation of it, that's fine. I said it with House of the Dragon because, there are certain points, things that happen a certain way that are documented. Things between that, you've got room to play. When the author gives you certain documented events that happened in a certain way, and you change those major events, that is where I take issue. I'm all for creative liberty when there's nothing documented. So having Hera be this character, making the story more about her, was fine with all of that.
It is also worth pointing out, 90% of what was written was in this movie. So they got almost every point except one. The biggest one, potentially, which is...
Who kills Wolf? Because it's not Hera.
It's not. And it didn't need to be. Not even in this film. She could have still played every other part, and then... I can't remember the other guy's name.
Freyalaf.
Begins with an F. The one who rolls in to save the day, yeah.
Freyalaf.
I was bored watching it. And I'm huge on movies. Like, I grew up...
She nearly fell asleep twice.
I nearly fell asleep. And I don't do that with a lot of... I find animated shows, I fall asleep too easier. So we'll take that into consideration. But still, typically, when it's a film, I'm focused in, I want to know what happens. Even if it's a bad film, I still tend to commit. But I was so
I have more
bored.
investment in Rings of Power than this.
Yes.
And it was negative investment, granted.
Yes.
But I cared more about what was happening because they were going so against it. This film felt like it was all for the original story. Until the last minute, that needs to be her thing. She has to do it because strong woman. That's where strong woman becomes an issue because, again, have your strong female leads, that's great. It can be done well and it can be done badly. And you can also find that grey area where you at the last minute. And that is unfortunately what happened with this film.
She saved her people by getting them to Helm's Deep. She saved them by getting them out of Helm's Deep.
Yep. She'd fulfilled her part. They could have remained trapped in there, a bit like Helm's Deep in the film, where she finally decides she's going to ride out, but they turn up just in time and hit them from the back, and Wolf ends up fighting...
Freyalaf.
Do we need to look it up?
Freyalaf. We had to Google it because he spent all of 2 minutes in the film and we can't remember his name. So they could have been trapped in Helm's Deep. Freyalaf could have turned up to save the day and she could have decided to ride out to meet him. They could have still had Freyalaf be the one to kill Wolf while her and a shield maiden, which I'm just not going to go into. She was probably the worst character in this, to be honest, as far as realism goes.
Ooh, I have one more on that one.
I have less issue with Helm fighting a giant ice troll with his bare fists and jumping 20 feet in the air.
Inconceivable.
Jumping 20 feet in the air. Than I had with this shield maiden. She just felt shoved in there for no reason. But, regardless, they could have still had her and Hera out on the battlefield fighting while Freyalaf beat Wolf. And closed the story properly as it was written.
They could have even made it a collaborative effort where it's because of Hera that Freyalaf killed Wolf, whatever. But then, obviously, it wasn't documented in the history. They didn't do that. They had it be just her. And because that was something that was documented, I have issue with it. I'm fine with her being a strong woman. I'm fine with her being an adept warrior, a capable horsewoman.
Especially since at the end of it, she then just rode off to freedom anyway.
Her name was Hera, the only daughter of Helm.
They didn't then try and force her into being the queen like they did. They tried so hard to make this not woke and not Mary Sue, but it didn't feel like you were having this strong woman being shoved down your throat.
Which
Until
was great.
then.
Yeah.
They have her walk out in a wedding dress.
Not all of them.
And beat this guy who's been pretty animalistic up until this point. He's been a pretty formidable character, pretty strong warrior. But this woman who's so wild and untamable, who's done nothing but what she's told throughout this entire movie.
Yes, father.
Why not? Why not just have her be able to best him in one-on-one combat, totally and utterly out of nowhere? The move was cool.
The move. And, as we've learned, totally possible.
Yep, possible, just you didn't have to.
It's incorrect based on the lore, which is what we're here for. But speaking of women, who the heck was the old lady walking around the Hornburg?
Oh, don't touch that, my lady.
What is her purpose?
The one who just happened to find a way into the room, save Hera, and then get left in there to fight off two blokes, and then just, like, jumped out the window and left with her.
No, that was her shield maiden. That was the
the
shield.
old witch lady.
Yeah, the one who's wandering around the Hornburg, just like, oh, this dress, like her advice is just being taken by Hera, who's now running, and she just gets to walk into whatever room.
What are you doing? That's for the king.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, this crazy old lady who's walking around talking about ghosts and spirits. And
I think part of it is the movie didn't feel complete. It felt like a snippet of a story. Go more into it. Tell us her history. Tell us why she's relevant. Or is she not? Because she didn't feel relevant.
that was the other thing I couldn't quite work out. It felt like what they were trying to imply was that it wasn't Helm who'd been going around killing all the soldiers.
Born of madness and grief. A wraith.
It was like a...
It was the ice troll, orc, whatever it was. They made it seem more like they thought it was Helm, but it was actually this thing who just resembled him if he was a ghostly monster creature.
But then Helm came and killed him.
Yeah, so did he not kill any of the soldiers? Did this thing kill him? Or did he kill him and this thing just happened to turn up for him to kill it as well to show us how big and powerful he was?
On the note of Helm, the way he died was the most unrealistic thing.
Frozen in place. Still standing guard. Before the gates of the Hornburg.
Unfortunately, that was one of the things, you know, there's people up there with bows and arrows.
The gate is stopped!
Why are they not covering him?
At all. Even if they'd have showed that they only had a limited supply of arrows and they could only cover him for an hour, something. But no, they just left him to die. And then when she runs out and they have the big fight later, all the archers are there ready and firing.
Also, he died standing up, frozen to death, which means... Did they just stop attacking at one point? If you're actively moving, I don't think you can freeze to death. Can you? Oh, maybe you can.
Maybe.
Science?
Maybe if he's...
Science, come tell me.
Science.
You know, losing blood, maybe, I don't know.
That bit was extremely unrealistic.
And again, a problem you wouldn't have had if it had been with real people, because you wouldn't be able to justify getting away with making such a simple blunder and error. When it's a real person standing there, you have to have limitations when you can see it's a flesh and blood human. By having it be this anime superhero, it just made him defy all logic, jumping 20 feet in the air to fight a troll.
You already said it.
I will keep saying it. It was the worst moment for me. As soon as I did that, I was done. I didn't care what happened with the rest of this film because I was like, it's just not real. It's not Middle-earth. People don't just super punch cave trolls in the chin. It doesn't happen. Otherwise, Aragorn could have done it. Theoden could have done it. No, Helm Helmahand is like a big, strong bloke. But he's not superhuman. He's just very strong. Yeah. Strong enough that he could punch another old man and kill him with one punch.
For the ending.
It's not like he punched some 30-year-old prime of his life warrior and killed him. No, because he was an old man. It's not realistic.
Okay.
It's not.
It's okay.
It's not realistic, and that was what did it for me ultimately. Was I was like, even if everything about this was perfect and they'd have just stuck to the points, it still would have done my head in that it was animated. Ultimately, that destroyed the film from the opening. It stuck with me through the entire thing. Yeah, they hit some of the key plot points. The characters were boring. I had no investment in any of them. I didn't care when the brothers died. I didn't care if she lived or died. I kind of cared when Helm died because he'd had that cool moment and he'd saved his daughter. I have daughters. I sympathise with the father wanting to save his daughter, but it was stupid. But it didn't have to happen that way.
Another stupid thing. The Watcher in the water. No, you don't get that. Because it's not like there are Watchers in the water, and this was just another one. Unless they're implying this one then moved from Rohan to the other side of Khazad-dûm. No, you don't get this thing. The Oliphant? Sure.
They played a lot into that, though. They gave it like its whole dialogue
They
about
made
how it was this monstrous creature, and then it was just a rabid oliphant that they then just
They
fed
made
to
it
the Watcher
seem-
in the water and
yeah.
it was done.
They made it seem like it would matter to the
Yeah.
story, and it didn't.
No, it just conveniently took her to the forest so that these two blokes could also conveniently be in the forest to grab her.
Yes.
And also,
No.
just as an outside looking in, what a good opportunity they missed to have Helm grab his daughter and throw her onto the ledge that Aragorn and Gimli had to jump from.
Yeah.
That would have been great.
That would have
have
been
him
cool.
grab her, throw her across. They can't open the door. Throws her over, and she can't jump back. She's not big enough because she's a woman, and she can't jump 20 feet.
Not even Gimli could do it. And he is a natural sprinter.
We dwarves are natural sprinters!
Toss me.
Toss me. What?
One or two moments of sort of gravity, they tried to build this like childhood relationship where like she and him had a backstory when they were kids, but then they took it no further. They didn't have it like they'd met again when they were a bit older and then again when they were a bit older, so they had this reoccur. No, just they had one memory from when they were this big. My daughters are that big. I'm pretty sure they won't be remembering stuff that's happening around this age by the time they're 20. Definitely not be
Not
holding on to it as a
everything.
sentimental memory of someone who is actively trying to kill their family. No. All in all, I was just like, it's not believable that they're leaning too much into this Hera wolf thing. They should have just left it as it was. By all means, take it a bit further in regards to, have her be the one that leads the people away, gets them all safe and all that, that's fine. But don't try and force this other thing. They already had the history because he'd wanted to marry her and her dad had basically said no.
Time to remind him of his place.
She had no further say from that point. Her dad said no, therefore she couldn't then go to him and be like, well, actually, I may do if it all safe. No, it had been taken off the table. He's already now just trying to, he doesn't want to marry her, he wants to kill a family. That's what the book says.
Not the person you want to marry. In short, it was just okay. The Eagles, that was the other thing. No. Just a no on the Eagles. The only reason they help out any of Middle-earth is because Gandalf is a Maiar and has a special relationship with them. That's it. They don't want to be involved. They don't care.
Don't just land on mountains for you to catch a fuss. They don't just turn up at
And they had no...
coronation ceremonies.
Screw you guys. I'm going home. Screw you guys. Home.
And they had no tie to the Rohirrim whatsoever. The Eagle and the Watcher, I'm just like, why did you even need that? You could have spent the time that you wasted on those furthering the plot and making us actually care about the characters. And like he said, more backstory on Hera and Wolf's relationship, more time to actually care about her brothers. Helm was the only character that I...
Go past a hands for. Helm was pretty cool, tough old man. I wish it wasn't animated. I wish they'd have got a real flesh and blood person to portray it.
So Hunt for Gollum, we're relying on you to save this.
I'm just trying to think, there's so many good older actors. It's someone like Ron Perlman? Hellboy.
Let me go in and say hi.
Yeah, no, he'd
Someone
been
like
great.
that who's a big, strong, known character. Or even one of the older lot, Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
The guy who played Hugh Hammer, ironically, in House of the Dragon.
Yeah.
He'd have been great.
He'd have been, No, I still think he'd have been a better Círdan for Rings of Power.
I agree, but...
We get wise old man. The wisest and oldest, in case you didn't know. I think it's just going to keep filtering into these things, guys. I can't help it.
At least this is, Tolkien related, so I'll give you that.
More so than Rings of Power, yeah.
Is it?
They got more of the story right, but
True.
everything else
I'll
was
give 'em
just
that.
wrong. That's what I mean. It was so tough because, from outside looking in, they hit most of the boxes. It wasn't terrible with regards to source material. It was just...
Boring.
Yeah, it was boring. It just was not good to watch.
It was boring. I was falling asleep. And not in, the pleasant way, when I start falling asleep to One Piece, where it's I'm struggling to not fall asleep because I want to know what happens, but the music and the sounds are just nice.
I think I actually started writing down some script for a video. So, yeah.
Really not focused. And that's the thing. It's not a movie I'm like, we have to show the kids. It's not a movie that I'm like, we could watch this again. I watched it once, and that's enough.
Even the bad guy was just a bit of a whiny little bitch. Really. There was not really anything convincing about him as a villain. He just...
Was evil, because...
He just... Yeah.
Dead dad.
He was. My dad died, therefore I can just keep going off the rails.
Because dead dad passed.
Dead dad pass. Which means I can do what I want, when I want, and no one can say anything about it. Dead dad pass.
Which, don't get me wrong, it's not to say it's not a good incentive to be mad. But then, again, that is what happens. I don't think he goes quite that off the rails, but he does go off the rails in the source material, so I guess. Anyway.
And with that, I think we're at the end of the video. I don't think we have anything left to say about this that we haven't already said. It'd be really nice if we can record something nice. I want to do nice reviews on this channel. But you're not giving us stuff.
No, there's not much at the minute. And we don't just want to go and start reviewing old stuff. There's already a million people done.
Stranger Things, though. We're hopeful. We're just waiting.
One more season to hopefully not mess up.
On that note, if you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching.
And if you'd like to join us on these little interdimensional journeys in future, then be sure to go down, like, subscribe, and of course hit the little notification bell that lets you know when we release new stuff. We'll see you on the next stop. So until then, safe travels.